Well, we're here today with Governor Mike Dunleavy. And Governor, I'm glad to have you back from Reno and Washington, D.C. I saw that you attended a meeting with the President and the administration was in attendance, as well as your fellow governors from across the country. As executive officers who are in charge of various states and jurisdictions, what were some of the main points in your takeaway with the governors meeting?
A good question. So this was the NGA, the National Governors Association, which is a bipartisan group. So you had Democrat, Republican governors there, and potentially independent governors as well. What is happening in their states? What are they doing to solve problems? This is one of the reasons why we go back there. And some of the things that the other governors are looking at are professional licensing, changes to their professional licensing regulations so that it makes it easier, especially for military spouses, to be transferred from one state to another. And what the reciprocity does is allows the states to get those folks, the spouses, up and working as quickly as possible. This helps the receiving state. This certainly helps the couple, the military couple. And so this was a discussion. A lot of states are working on this. We're working on this as well because we have a big military presence in Alaska. We were also having discussions about deregulation. In other words, what are some of the barriers that are in the way of business investment, businesses moving to a state, along, as we mentioned, licensing, but just the whole deregulatory process was talked about as well. Again, making sure that we maintain the health and safety of our respective citizens in our respective states, Alaska being our case, but nonetheless, how can we make things easier for people as opposed to harder for people?
Now, the state of Alaska has a lot of things. We have abundant resources. We have resources that we don't even know that we have. Right. We know that we don't know. And so the Department of Interior is a critical federal department, especially in regards to the state of Alaska.
Right.
When you were back in D.C., did you have a chance to talk with the Secretary of the Interior?
Yes, we had a nice meeting with Secretary Bernhardt. Alaska is pretty high on that radar screen in that department, obviously for obvious reasons. Our timber, our rare earths, our gold, our oil, you name it. Our lands. We still are waiting for approximately 5 million acres of land, 5 million acres of land to be transferred over to Alaska as part of the Statehood Act. So we had some great discussions with the Secretary, and these issues are high on the radar screen, and we're hoping to get some resolution to some of these issues within the next 12 months, is what we discussed.
Now, in addition to traveling to D.C., you were also in Reno. Part of what you campaigned on, part of what a main portion of your agenda as governor is spreading the message of Alaska, not on a specific niche project, but on the broad portfolio of investment opportunities for the state as well. How were you received recently during that trip?
It was a great trip, and what was going on in Reno was it was a Safari Club International symposium, an international conference in Reno. And what happens there is you have guides and hunting outfits and support services from all over the country, all over the world there, with selling their wares, as we would say. And we had a lot of Alaskans there, a lot of Alaskan businesses there. And so I want to get on and show support to these businesses, but also get an idea what other states are doing to attract business in terms of guiding and hunting and fishing. What are some other states and provinces and countries doing in terms of their fish and game as well? So for me, it was an eye-opener. And again, we got an opportunity to talk to some of our own local vendors, but talk to others to see what they're doing. So it was a really good, it was really a great way to exchange ideas and learn new things as to what other countries, states, and provinces are doing to attract business.
Do you think because Alaska is what we are a destination, outdoor recreation, bucket list sort of place, that other states have sort of had to up their game, where we've sort of rested on, well, we're Alaska. What are you going to do? And other states have really sort of been forward-leaning in marketing and identifying themselves as a destination for hunting, fishing, and outdoor recreation?
Right. So, I mean, Alaska is viewed as one of the crown jewels of hunting in the world, right? I mean, it just ranks up there with Africa because of the size of our animals, the wilderness, just the whole outdoor experience is second to none. But nonetheless, you still learn about cutting-edge approaches to business, how to get customers, how to market what you have in a manner that's going to bring money and business to Alaska to help Alaskans. And the great news is what I found out is a lot of our Alaskan vendors down there, they were booking lots of customers. And the anticipation was that they're going to be sold out here pretty quick if they aren't already. So it's going to be a good year for Alaskans, good year for Alaskan businesses. And so it was a great trip being there.
So shifting gears a little bit, you've had two major initiatives that have rolled out this week. Let's start with the lands bill. You addressed it in the State of the State address, an opportunity for Alaskans to gain ownership of land in a way without a lot of the strings attached, and indeed leveraging the historic calculation of their permanent fund dividend towards owning a piece of the 49th state. What are your thoughts on the progress of the bill thus far, and what are some things that you think Alaskans should be paying attention to regarding that?
Well, I'm optimistic, obviously. I mean, Alaska has a lot of land, but only 1% of it is in private hands. And Alaskans, it surprises people, especially in the lower 48, when they hear that there's no longer a homesteading program in Alaska. Because with all the land, the assumption is that you want people to settle the land. In Alaska, we have become a little too bureaucratic when it comes to our land. We want to hang on to it. The state does, the government does. And so as a result of a lot of Alaskans contacting me about wanting to get a piece of Alaska, we are revising the way we deal with land. For too long, it's been difficult to get. Oftentimes, the land has been quite a distance from roads or rivers or other methods, landing strips, other ways to get to that land. But we're revising our regulations. We're revising how we select land. We're also going to revise how once you get the land, what you can do with that land. So it resembles more of a private ownership and should be more of a private ownership than what we currently have. Then the other part of that is leveraging your PFD for a land certificate, a land voucher. And so what we are proposing is that a land certificate, if you check off a box on your PFD application, that you get twice the value of your statutory calculated PFD. So this year, if you were to check off, in theory, if we were to have this in place now, you were to check off that box, you would get about $6,400 land certificate that could be applied to land anywhere in the state of Alaska that's for sale. This is significant because we do want to move land. We want to make it available for the people of Alaska. But once it gets into the hands of private individuals, they're able to increase its value, do something with it. And so we're pretty excited about the prospects of this bill, and we're hoping that we get support in the legislature.
You know, in talking with different folks, and I'm sure you've had the same experience, that the dividend, as you pointed out, is a catalyst for private ownership, private investment, and just Alaskans utilizing their share of our mineral and oil wealth. But the backdrop to all of that is this sort of open-ended philosophy on spending. And it seems that this legislative session, you have placed a renewed emphasis on a constitutional spending cap.
Right.
Sort of a hard backstop in good times and in bad for governors who follow you, legislators who follow this legislative session, to know what that line is. How important is that in an overall long-term economic plan?
It'll give fiscal certainty. It'll give budget certainty going forward for Alaskans, for investors, for all of us. Without sideboards on our spending, we have demonstrated throughout the past several decades that when we come into a windfall, more oil money, we spend it. And when we spend it, oftentimes we don't have a lot to show for it. We've spent about $14 to $15 billion in the past 5 years, and we can't point to any big capital projects, electrical projects that would give us electrification, let's say, to all of Alaska, port projects, big road projects, roads to resources. We really can't point to that. And so the money kind of like slipped through our fingers. What this spending limit will do is hem us in so that when we come into another windfall, which we're anticipating is going to happen here in the next several years due to investment in the North Slope oil patch, that we're able to hang on to it. We just don't spend it, but maybe we spend it on capital projects that return an investment for the state of Alaska. Maybe we spend it on roads to resources that will return an investment to the state of Alaska. Maybe we can reduce electricity for all of Alaskans through a project or two. So the idea is don't spend it as soon as you get it. Hang on to it, give certainty to budgeting. Let's say our operating budget grows at about 2.5% a year, several years out, several decades out. That allows us to get an understanding and get a projection as to where we're going to be here in a few years with our spending and with the growth of government. I think Alaskans actually want this. I think if this is sent out to Alaskans to vote on it as a constitutional amendment, it will pass overwhelmingly. And I'm urging the legislature to move this constitutional amendment forward.
I do want to touch on another bill that came out, and that is your proposal for a statewide lottery. Some critics, I believe inaccurately so, well, this is not going to solve the fiscal gap in the state. Who've never proposed it to do that. But some others have said lotteries tend to be a tax on the poor. People who are below a certain economic income level purchase lottery tickets in the thought that this will close that gap and completely change their lives. You've proposed this. What are your thoughts and discussion points that you want to get out in relation to those concerns?
Well, with regard to a tax on the poor, there's nothing more significant in terms of taxation on the poor than taking the PFD. We all know that. But with regard to the lottery, this is voluntary. This is people of Alaska and visitors and tourists wanting to participate in a lottery, a game of chances, we would say. But it will put money into our treasury. We don't know how much that'll be at first. Some estimates are $8 to $10 million and upwards of $100 million, depending upon how this actually rolls out and what it looks like in the end. But in the end, it's a move in the right direction. It's voluntary. It helps capture some income from visitors and tourists. From everything I've gathered, a lot of Alaskans are excited about moving this bill forward as well. So we're hoping that the legislature does that.
I can back that up. I've been monitoring social media, and a lot of folks, I think a common refrain for many is, what took us so long?
Right.
And so there's a lot of optimism and interest about how this and what it looks like is going forward. Speaking of optimism, you're the optimist at the table. I tend to be more cynical. We're about a third-ish into the 2020 legislative session. The excitement's over. Now we're getting into sort of the dog days aspect of the legislative process. What are your thoughts as to where things are moving a third of the way in and going forward?
Well, we have some tough issues. There's no doubt about it. The fiscal issues, the issue regarding the PFD, the spending limit. We also have a constitutional amendment that we proposed last year on no taxation without the people agreeing to the taxation. These are heavy lifts, but our back, is basically against the wall. We're running out of savings. Decisions have to be made. We introduced the flat budget this year so that the budget itself wouldn't become the distraction. This is an opportunity now for the legislature to shine, as we would say, to show us their ideas to solve this issue. Our ideas were put out on the table last year. They're still in play with our bills and our constitutional amendments. But we want to see what the legislature has in mind. I think the people of Alaska are asking themselves, asking me, asking everybody, what ideas does the legislature have? What ideas do individual legislators have to solve this issue? So this is an opportunity for them to discuss their concepts with the administration, myself, and I look forward to working with them on solving these issues. But we're going to wait and see here, hopefully shortly, what they come up with, and we'll begin our negotiations and our discussions in earnest.
Well, Governor, I look forward to watching that all unfold. It's been fascinating to see thus far. I appreciate your time today. We'll chat down the road with Governor Mike Dunleavy. Thanks so much, sir.
Thank you.